After your arraignment, the next very important step will be a grand jury hearing. Right? So this is what this means. We can't confuse the grand jury with the trial jury. They're two different things. In fact, you might get a subpoena from the court that says you are going to be on the grand jury, right? If you get one of those, you're like, oh boy, that means you have to show up like every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks or whatever the case may be. You could get federal grand jury, you could get state grand jury, right? You can get the county grand jury, whatever the case may be. But that means you're going to have to show up regularly to court to be a member of this grand jury. The grand jury, like I said, is different than the trial jury. All right? It's important that we keep these things distinct in our mind. Right? The grand jury is called a jury of inquiry. The grand jury doesn't find you guilty or not guilty. They have one simple job. Their job is to look at the information prepared by the prosecuting attorney, hear a little bit from the defense team, and their main job, the main job of the grand jury, is to decide if there's enough evidence against you for you to stand trial. If after hearing this, after hearing from the prosecuting attorney, after hearing from the defense attorney, the grand jury says, yeah, there's a possibility that this person committed these crimes, they hand down an indictment. So the grand jury does not find you guilty or innocent. The grand jury hands down an indictment. If you are indicted, right? If you are indicted, that means there is enough evidence for you to stand trial. If the grand jury finds that there's not enough evidence for you to stand trial, then you will be acquitted. If you're acquitted, you're free. Not enough evidence for you to stand trial. If you're indicted, then you will be rearraigned. And in that arraignment, again, the judge is going to say to you, listen, the grand jury indicted you. That means that there's enough evidence against you for there to be a trial. Right? They think you might be the guy. They think you may have committed these things. Let me ask you, how do you plead? And if you plead guilty at this point, maybe you plead down to a lesser sentence, right? Maybe they try to make a deal. The prosecuting attorney will make a deal for your guilty plea. Maybe they'll say, listen, the grand jury handed down you've been indicted. Plead guilty to 5 years instead of 8, with the ability to get out in 3. And maybe we'll consider time served for the year that you've already spent waiting your trial. Right? That could happen too. Right? So that is how that'll go down. If at this point you still plead not guilty, which in your heart of hearts, don't plead guilty to something you didn't do, right? If you say you're not guilty, if you still plead that you're not guilty, then the trial is going to start. and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next video. But this is kind of what we have so far in a recap. You know, things happen a little bit differently if you know you're caught red-handed, right? If you plea out even before the grand jury hearing, right? You know, and each state is pretty close to following this format, but they might have a little bit of differences. This is kind of a generality, right? So this is kind of what we have so far. An arrest, and information presented by the grand jury, or by the prosecuting attorney. We have a grand jury. If the grand jury indicts you, all right, then you'll be arraigned. Your arraignment might fall in a different location. Might be an arrest and an arraignment, right? Maybe you'll be arraigned twice. It depends on the situation. But that's part of the reason why people find the trials, you know, they're cumbersome. They could take a long time. And it's a difficult process. It's a difficult process. It's really not one you want to be involved in. So that's it. If you have any questions, all right. Well, let me just click on the next slide here, because then we have the trial. This is where we have the jury that's going to find you guilty or not guilty, right? And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in the next video. So if you have any questions, always, don't hesitate to contact me. I hope you like this video. It's kind of fun to do. Yeah, I'm sitting in the dark so you can see my screen. Where is it? It's over here. But I got a light over here shining. But we're trying to make it work. So have a good night. I'm off to practice my bongos.